Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast if you're new here. Welcome back if you have been before. We appreciate all of you. In today's episode called Way LaVey, we are going to discuss a man who continues to fascinate and intrigue many people who, for whatever reason, come in contact with Satanism. If you're listening to our podcast, you're probably interested or at least curious to learn more about satanic views, beliefs, practices, history, and much more that there is to explore. Together with my satanic siblings in this podcast, we are all members of the Global Order of Satan UK. We get often asked about our opinions on Anton LaVey, which is why we decided to share what we think, what we might agree or disagree with. All you will hear is basically our opinions based on publicly available sources and facts. My name is Lygia. Hail Satan.
I'm Bohema. Hail Satan.
I'm Eddie. Hail Satan.
I'm Laraj. Hail Satan.
And I'm Lithos. Hail Satan.
Anton was born in 1930. He has lived the majority of his life in San Francisco, California. When he was 16, he dropped out of school because he decided that he wants to do something more exciting. So he decided to join a circus life. This speaks to his artistic personality, which has been manifesting during his life in many art fields. Many people know that he was a talented musician. He absolutely loved performing his music, playing on a calliope and organ, preferably in circus, at carnivals, nightclubs, and establishments that were fun and a little bit controversial. He absolutely loved this. Not everybody knows that he also loved other art, like visual arts. He worked for the San Franciscan police. He was a photographer for the crime scenes, which was actually very interesting because he started creating these collages, we can call it, like really nice graphic collages of pictures taken at crime scenes, which were taken, I don't know how this was legal, that this is really blowing my mind, but he was taking not just pictures for the police, but once he was there, he was able to take pictures from weird angles and put them together in like a really scary, weird way. And these pictures are not easy to find, but they're really, really cool, I think. He was talented, so I was wondering what could have been if he was following this path. Anyway, but this job for the police, because it was crime scenes he was dealing with, this did something with his life, with his thinking. It was intriguing, but also it somehow disillusioned him. He started to see the problems in the society in a really brutal way, and he started to see the whole society as corrupted and just lost. So this might be one of the reasons why he did what he did later in his life and why he might have, we can say he did not really like people and didn't really want to do much goodness in this world because he saw it as a lost case. But yeah, so this disturbing and often brutal nature of the job confirmed Anton's atheistic worldview, which he stuck onto this worldview for the rest of his life. He lost his illusions about humans and their divine or sacred parts or level of the human being that could be seen as something higher than other animals. His critical views of society and its corrupted ways meant he got completely disillusioned, as I said. And he then started focusing on nonviolent revenge. We can call it a revenge, in the sense of how to use what he could in the society to his advantage with no remorse. Is there anything you would like to talk about here? Because then I have like beliefs.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting, very interesting and weird background. But I think as we get on with this, everything about this guy is fucking weird and unusual. There is nothing that fits into any kind of norm or idea of where he ends up, how he ends up where he ends up, basically.
Yeah, I didn't know anything. I didn't know about the police thing at all. That's completely new information to me.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to know that. It's really something.
So was he doing art of crime scenes? Is that because that's a bit?
This is how I understood it. I was trying to find out more, but I found some like YouTubers talking about this. Nobody actually was able to help me to find the actual source, but it's clear he worked as the crime scene photographer. And there are these pictures. It's, as I say, it's not easy to find them. I was able to locate just one, but then I don't know where they are, but this is interesting. Maybe I can look into this. I needed more time. But, you know, it was in the 60s. No, it was before. I can't really tell you when. But maybe it was okay.
Yeah.
Strange things used to be legal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, I know standards of evidence have come a long way since like whenever it was that he was doing that, which I would imagine. If he was, when did you say he was born in 1930? So let's say
30,
it must have been
yes.
it must have been sometime in the sort of 50s he was doing this then.
Yeah.
It's worth noting that a lot of this is based on his own testimony and the only things he says. Like, there's a lot of dispute around that. I'm trying to find the article I read a few years ago. Where is it? Lawrence Wright, there it is. He wrote an article, I think, for the Rolling Stone prior to LaVey's death in the early 90s, where he'd also, he'd done his due diligence, and looked into his past and couldn't find any evidence of LaVey like existing in a circus or actually having worked for the police in San Francisco. There's, he clearly knew a lot of police officers in San Francisco. There's a lot of like documented relationship between them and a lot of cops in San Fran. But as for actual, evidence of him having a proper job, either in the circus or with the police, it's very much up in the air and disputed. But very much the sort of thing that you would add if you're trying to make yourself out to be the sort of like macabre, impressive figure that LaVey definitely wanted to make himself look like.
Also, he was a magician, so maybe this whole thing was just his sort of magic. And he was known to be a liar.
Fantasist.
Yeah, I want to find like a better word. But a liar, like he was making shit
You're
up.
a fucking liar, Anton. You're a fucking liar.
Yeah, so
allegedly.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I mean, the whole magic thing makes sense because he bloody looks like a stage magician. Either that or stage hypnotist. Anton LaVey. He just looks like
Anton LaVey.
I mean, I love his look.
So this whole thing about the circus, the police thing, this could be just his way of creating a kind of false reality about himself to make himself look more esoteric and
noticeable,
slightly odd. Yeah.
Shocking. Also, I forgot to say he was also, well, I don't know if this is a fact, but it's known that he was supposed to be a lion tamer, which is interesting because if he if we worked, just imagine that. He has many pictures with a lion. He actually was taking that pet lion to schools for the kids to touch the lion. I mean, crazy stuff. There are pictures of that, so I don't know. But
was he hoping that the lion might actually generate more crime scene photos for him to draw?
I'm sorry.
After it's slaughtered every
funny.
child in the school.
That is funny. But I looked into this because I am against circuses with animals, so it really triggered something in me. So I was like, hold on, how bad it is for the lion to actually jump through the loops and everything. And from what I found, it's actually natural for them. Like lions and tigers, they do this all the time. They just jump through everything. So it looks like he didn't have to do much. He just stood there and those animals did what they would do anyway, without him or with him or whatever. So if this is all true, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. Never worked for any circus, or I don't have a lion. 2 cats, they jump around. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Some of us have cats and they see something and they'll jump over it.
Yeah. So basically, maybe this was also just something he used for his advantage. I don't know.
Jay, if you did have a lion, I can guarantee you that's what we would be doing the podcast episode on.
Okay, I'm getting one.
Why has Lygia got a lion?
Oh, where is Lygia? What happened? She was just here. Okay, so you see, I said it's based on facts, but it's actually all based on what we can find, and it's really hard with a person who you can't read, because if you're making stuff every step you take, you get lost. It's really, really tough. And all the people around you, they are with you. That was his family, his kids, and everybody was saying what he wanted to say. But, it's all fun and games here. Anton was an atheist, so that means he did not believe in God or Satan or any higher powers. This is what he was proclaiming. He himself has designed and constructed his own persona. And this persona used bits of magic practice, occult stuff, hedonism, rebellion, and materialistic thinking to attract and shock and confuse people. And people wanted to be confused. They wanted to be shocked. It's like, it's normal for people, I guess. That didn't change that much. And he openly proclaimed his aversion to traditional religions and its doctrines and norms and everything. And basically, he was criticizing abstinence and repression of the traditional, specifically Catholic religion. According to him, human desires are natural. They are natural forces, which, if are repressed, this can manifest in harmful ways for people, for the psyche, for, some mental health issues. So he was advocating for hedonistic lifestyle, we can say, as an opposition to this traditional religion stuff. So basically, this is where he started using the most shocking thing he could think of, which was the satanic visuals, ideas, and everything that people back then in the 60s, 70s, thought of being shocking, terrifying, interesting, macabre, and he called it satanic because he thought, okay, so if I hate God as a figure, who will be the most impressive figure to use to, attract people who want to be attracted? And who else? It's Satan. So this is basically how I see he came up with the whole thing and the whole satanic thing. And because it's so I mean, we are Satanists, and for us, this is very precious. For me, our rituals, our visuals, robes, and everything we use is precious, and I don't want it to sound like I'm mocking it. But at the same time, I don't think it was precious to him. So this is why I'm saying it in this way, like he came from a place in his mind that he was only using the whole thing to, you know,
He transgressed.
Yes, for his benefit, for the fame, and just to be this greatest magician and I don't want to say clown, but yeah, basically, if you know what I mean. So this is how I think it all came to the satanic thing. He wanted to mock the biblical scriptures, the texts, the prayers that were well known between people. So he was basically satanizing the saints and coming up with the names that would be like more satanic than the religious and like even old pagan names that was used by Christians, because that's another story. They love doing that. So it all came to this mixture of many things he called satanic. So this is where we are. And
it's really odd as well that roughly the same sort of time period, you also had Scientology starting to emerge, and things like the Process Church of the Final Judgment. I don't know. It feels like it was a time in America where people were looking for something.
They were taking a lot of drugs.
It's worth noting that the Process Church was very much a British sort of thing, influenced by Scientology. But yes.
Oh.
Yes, that's true.
Right, that's a different topic. I would not like to go into that. But if you feel like it, I'm listening.
No. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sidetrack it. It's just
Yeah.
very curious to me.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of like
it is.
I mean, there's always been people who've proclaimed themselves kind of like thought leaders or spiritual leaders, but it does seem at that particular point in time there was a kind of like uptick in that kind of thing, or that's how it seems to me anyway.
It was new and fresh and daring, you know. Also, the media and TV and everything was like, it was starting to be like very easy to see for the world, you know. So it was great. If you wanted to be famous, I think, yeah, this was the way. It's still working for him. I mean, the guy is dead. And look at me. Yeah, so basically talking about him being famous, this wouldn't have been enough, just creating this blah blah, you know, and putting the cloak over yourself and just like basically stating you're a Satanist. Okay, maybe a part of your town would know, but what helped him to be actually really, really famous were, I would say, like six events or points. So if you don't mind, I will just quickly go through them and we can talk. So the first one that I think was obviously he established the Church of Satan, which was in April 1966. This was based in his house, which he called the Black House. It doesn't exist anymore. I tried. And he started like inviting people and lecturing them on topics that were controversial and shocking again, like cannibalism, vampirism, necrophilia, you know, the stuff. Very much connected to Satanism, obviously. I'm joking, okay? He started to sleep in a coffin. He shaved his head, very famous look. And he started to call himself the Black Pope. So this was the first big thing, which the Church of Satan, obviously, that's another topic, but we get many questions about the connection between us and the Church of Satan. So it's good to know where we stand. People were interested to see what is going on, and he was getting noticed. But this was just the first thing. Then he performed the first satanic wedding in this house. Then the next one was like public satanic baptism of his daughter Zina. She was 3 years old. It was the media was all over the place because it was so different from the normal traditional Catholic baptism. He wanted it to be different. So there was this nude lady, obviously, lying there, and this little child, his daughter, sitting next to her, and it was all supposed to look like joyful, I would say. There was no silence, and like if you go to church for a Christian baptism, it's all very strict and people don't speak, you're silent. So he wanted to do it in a different way, to be completely different. So this was a big thing because there was a child involved. You can find videos of Zina talking about this. So also there is a video of the actual baptism, so if you want to go see that.
There's the inherent like hypocrisy with LaVey and his like ideals and like way of looking forwards. Like a big part about like Satanic Bible is only is being able to influence people based on what they want and what they can like consent to, and like not encroaching on what people not encroaching in people's lives when it's unwarranted or unasked for. And like inherently a part of that is, in my view, baptizing a child into a religion. You shouldn't be doing that because they can't make an informed choice on that. And then actively taking that step to take your own child and baptize them into your faith, which is kind of explicitly sort of antithetical to what the whole point of it is, feels very much of the like a really like nice sort of like microcosm of the hypocrisy of what LaVey is and what he stood for, like inherently trying to make this sort of like public facing, oh, we should be a faith for people who are rational and proper people and people who can think and not to engross in other people's lives, and at the same time, breaking the cardinal rule.
That is a very good point, because he constantly says everywhere, like, everybody needs to consent to what is done. This is the point of being a Satanist. But he constantly does this. It's not just his daughter. It's like, for example, I have this beautiful example. There are so many, but in his book, Satanic Witch, for example, yes, just listen to this. How to become a succubus and attack the man of your choice while he sleeps. I mean...
Great.
Is there anything I need to say?
No.
Yeah,
I think we can let that one
very
lie.
difficult. It's very difficult to see how that could possibly be consensual.
No.
Well, a lot of his writings just seem to be, I mean, it's just like a mishmash of stuff that he's just thought up, and then he's gone, I'll write a bit about this, and then I'll write a bit about this, and then I'll write something that completely contradicts it because it's a different day. He's got a hangover, he's taken a different drug, I don't know. It's just completely inconsistent in every which way. And as Eddie said, it's hypocritical because in the end, you want consent. Well, what you've just said there, Lygia, that's exactly not consent.
But then again, it's also worth noting for a lot of these people in like this milieu of neo-fascist ideology, which I'm sure we're going to get to later. It's hypocrisy is table stakes. It's completely like it's expected of these people in this sort of viewpoint. The holding like a coherent worldview is not important. What's important is being able to like drum up as much attention to your cause as possible to make you as much money, or get you as much influence and power as possible.
Yeah, there's touching on that. I think it's kind of like a law of diminishing returns as well. You've got to become increasingly shocking as people get more used to what you're. You start off by saying something like, "I don't believe in God," which in the 50s and 60s could possibly been quite a shocking idea. But that's not enough. You've got to keep up in the ante and up in the ante to maintain people's interest and donations, I would expect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the other thing, which is he's setting himself up to, as kind of like so anti-church that he's literally mirror imaging what the Catholic Church is doing, in the sense that he's a black pope, he has black baptisms, he's basically, in Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek." He says, "Fuck the meek, the powerful are everything." So he's like just literally going, what the church does, I'm going to do exactly the opposite, which is kind of a bit of a childish way of going about it, really.
Yeah, it's not really Satanism, it's just reverse Christianity.
Yes, that's it. Reverse Christianity, not Satanism. Yes.
Then, after this baptism, he performed a satanic funeral for a Navy guy, which actually helped the whole satanic thing he was doing to become a religion, because it was put into the handbook of armed forces services as a religion, because this was a Navy guy. Yeah, I guess everything was easier back then. I don't know. I wish we could just do this. Anyway.
Oh, sorry. Are you saying that the Navy had to put in the satanic funeral into their official handbook, or it
the
was already
story
there?
went. No, it wasn't. This is how I understood this. It wasn't there, but because the wife of this guy, for whatever reason, I don't know, she asked for this funeral to be.
Right.
I don't know if this was also just for her shock value. I don't know if the poor guy even knew what was going to happen to him. The question is, was there consent? I don't know, because this was at the beginning, so I don't think. Well, let's just not go there. What I think.
So what was
I was not there. What is that?
So what was this concerning? Sorry, is this about
the satanic funeral?
Yes, satanic funeral. Yeah.
So basically, someone who was in the American Navy, when he died, he was given a satanic funeral, and Lagia is sort of questioning whether this guy ever actually gave consent.
Yeah, if he was,
and it might have been more about what his wife wanted rather than.
Maybe there was her connection to the church or to Anton. Who knows?
Yeah.
But basically, because in the US, this is kind of like honorable thing with the flag and everything. I imagine it was a big thing because it was a first. So again, this made him noticed and people wanted to know more. And then he was invited to bless a TV show. It was called The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. It was the 7th anniversary of the show, and again, this guy invited him. So there was a satanic blessing given. And after that, he decided in 1969 to write the Bible, the Bible we all know, the Satanic Bible. Some people still think this is a great book. I would like you guys to say, what do you think about this? About any of these points that made him famous, put him on the map, the national map, and then maybe the world map. What do you think?
It's bad.
I think it's hilarious that the thing that made him want to write a satanic Bible was blessed a TV show.
It's contradicting reports of when he wanted to start doing that. But yeah, no, the book itself is bad. This is a bad book. It's not great. Like, but people have gone over it a few times. That it's mostly based. What the fuck was that? Someone's screaming outside. We can ignore that. Most of it is based on Might is Right, the fascist screed. A lot of it's ripped wholesale from that. Then there's also a bunch of Enochian and a bunch of other tongue-in-cheek jokes about established religions while also trying to pay lip service to them to establish the, occult or magical foundation in it to make it look like it's more legitimate. When he goes for it, that's part of the reason why John Dee's Enochian is in here at the back as well for a bunch of other stuff. It's again, the entire work is a work of contradiction, and it's a work of just as little effort as possible to dress up something and make it look as much as they can.
Yeah, I mean there are whole quotes lifted wholesale from Might Is Right in it.
Yeah,
and also he, as I understand it, he borrowed quite heavily from Ayn Rand's philosophy.
Oh yeah. It's that what is the term for it? Not individual.
Sort of libertarianism type thing.
Yeah, but it's something specific to Rand. I can't remember. What the fuck do they term? Objectivist. That's what it is.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's objectivist. The philosophy of fuck society. I'm the only person who really matters. That sort of rejection of it all.
I mean, this is the thing that's always confused me about LaVey and Satanism, and by extension, the Church of Satan. I mean, to me, one of the defining characteristics of Satanism is the fact that it is the kind of like adversarial thing, and they are so fiercely individualistic. And he preached such a fiercely individualistic philosophy. I don't think I've ever really understood what it was that he was claiming to be an adversary of or to. I mean, it makes, I don't, like I said earlier, I'm really not sure. I know he called it Satanism, but I don't ever think it really was.
Well, it was
certainly not as I understand it.
No, not as any of us understand it, really.
I wanted to get to a point where we can actually say, how are we different? Why do we not really agree with what, like he paved something for us. I think we can agree on that. Like it was 60 years ago. So we were not alive, but you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean,
should I have a whole thing here, like I call it what was wrong with Anton?
we can't deny that basically it's arguable that without LaVey and the Church of Satan, it would have taken a lot longer for organizations like us to come around, because he was at the forefront of the idea of non-theistic Satanism. That much is true. However, that's evolution.
I'm really not sure about that.
I mean, where the fun begins.
It's like I know I harp on about this a lot, but really the movement that was kind of like started, the literary movement that was started by Wollstonecraft and Shelley and Byron and Blake and a few others, there was no suggestion that they were anything other than atheists, who also put forward ideas about Satanism that influenced not just literature, but the politics of that time. So I agree that LaVey kind of formalized that, but I think there were people who had that the basic idea that he had, a long time before he did.
Oh yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is, I think it would have taken potentially a lot longer. It would have come around, but it made it certainly a lot easier in some ways to form what are now, and there are an awful lot of non-theistic satanic organizations. It's not just the big ones like TST or GOS or Church of Satan. There's a hell of a lot of others.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's codifying like the Romantic movement and taking the influences there to build something into, well, to use LaVey's word, I just forgot it. It's an aesthetic tool an aesthetic ideal. It's you're taking these sort of things and putting them together into something to build like an aesthetic movement, as well as something with a code of conduct or a code of ideals to live behind, which that's where it is. And a lot of these things have existed in bits and pieces here and there everywhere. And I guess like arguably LaVey's one of the first to draw them together into something approaching a codified philosophy on that fact.
Yes. I mean, you are absolutely right, of course. But he kind of so to sort of like go back to Shelley, Byron and everyone, their Satanism was very much of the people, by the people kind of thing. It was very much a communal thing. And LaVey's take on Satanism, or whatever you want to call it, was so fiercely individualistic and of the individual that it seemed I mean, I don't know. It does seem like a different thing. I'm not sure. I think there are elements which they have in common, but they do feel very different to me.
Yeah, it's very libertarian in the kind of sense of, yes, money and power rules over everything else, and the weak can go fuck themselves, because if they're not strong enough, then it's kind of social Darwinism kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean,
social
the satanic
Darwinism.
a direct quote from the Satanic Bible is "Death to the weakling, wealth to the strong."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it's yeah. I think it's good to like think about it, especially with you when you're looking at the romance movement and the of your Shelleys, your Byrons. If you're looking at like the whole, a lot of the focus on this was like the focus on the individual as a person, and like looking back into sort of how one person's place in the world exists. And it's a very broad sort of like function. It's not really focused on anything one, and you can take it of that, like look at individualism, and you can take it from that perspective, and you can go towards LaVey and Rand and the objectivism, and like you're the only person who really matters and everyone else will go to hell. Or you can take it from the other one, like every person's individually important and should be respected as such, to where our perspective kind of lies.
Yeah, I mean it seems to me that LaVeyan, or what's become known as LaVeyan Satanism, is more a kind of like outlier on the kind of like evolution that started with Milton, and was kind of like solidified by the Romantic movement, and then what we have become. Is that unfair? Is that unfair?
It's not unfair. I think it's quite funny to describe LaVeyan Satanism as like an outlier when you're talking about Milton, who was very much like a devout Christian.
He was, yes,
Protestant,
yeah.
and to like relate it to Satanism is quite entertaining. Like building the character of Satan in the way he did, very unintentionally having people revere it as a figure. It's quite would probably give the man a heart attack if he was.
He would, definitely would. Yeah. But his Milton's Satan was kind of like, I mean, there's a scene somewhere in Paradise Lost where Satan asks for the opinions of his demons on what he's planning to do, and that seems to me the kind of basis of Satanism that we certainly practice, and that's why I kind of like to think of LaVeyan Satanism is kind of like an outlier. Maybe outlier is the wrong word, but maybe like a bump in the road sort of thing. It's noticeably different, that kind of like idea of communal participation. Than this kind of like fiercely individualistic stance that he took.
Right. Okay. I mean, I guess like historically, LaVeyan Satanism had like a community element to it with their grotto system. They did get rid of that eventually. I can't remember when they stopped using it. But I think that was relatively late on into the existence of Satanism, with LaVeyan's way about it. It's worth noting that, like, especially the early days of the church, there was a lot of people doing things together to make it come together. It wasn't you being just excised into your own buckets. You have to come together to do ceremony. You have to come together to do like a black mass. Grottos exist in your local areas to have that community space for it. And although you're focusing on it more as an individual from that perspective, it's not completely isolationist as it appears to be more so today.
But also the communion was always based around him. He was the center of every event and everything.
Right.
So this is what I think was happening. So it was like more of a private club with membership.
Yeah.
More like a private.
You know what I mean?
Private men's club, because let's not ignore the other thing here, which is the blatant misogyny that underlies an awful lot of it, because you see an awful lot of images of the ceremonies and there's blokes dressed in robes and the only people naked in the room are young buxom women, and you're going, yes, I can kind of see that you have a certain idea of what men do and what women do, and maybe that was a product of its time, but it was blatantly sexist.
I think that presentation borrowed a lot from his. He quotes in the Satanic Bible. He talks about Dennis Wheatley and novels, the kind of like English fictional Satanism. And I don't know if any of you have ever read a Dennis Wheatley novel, but the covers are invariably buxom young women getting slaughtered on altars and stuff like that.
And I think like one of the most important parts of Satanism to LaVey, which he would go on about a lot, was the aesthetics of it. It's making it look right more than anything else. Because if the aesthetics of then everything else falls into place. So having, your tall, balding, devilish-looking men around conventionally attractive women in various states of undress, in that sort of way, that's part of the aesthetic, and it leads into how the ceremony works together and it comes together and sort of thing. If you're expecting it and you walk into a place that looks that way, then you're more likely to go into it and work with that system as it is.
And in his the book The Satanic Witch, I couldn't read the whole thing. I apologize. I really tried yesterday. It's only 88 pages, so if anyone wants to read the whole thing, go ahead.
Don't apologize. I admire your intestinal fortitude, because I tried to read the Satanic Bible and did not get very far before I went.
Yeah, this is a different level. Maybe because I'm a woman and I identify as a woman. So for me, this was really. I am trying to understand. Like, it was written in the 60s, 70s. So I know the situation, the mood, how people view women and their beauty, and how the beauty was, objectified. And for example, just like women working for fly companies, they had to be certain weight and certain height, and it's I hope it's gone, this horrible stuff that was going on, but it was still happening. So for me, it's really confusing, because I hate seeing that women can't express themselves if they want to by nudity or something, and it's being seen like, oh my God, she's don't want to use words that might be problematic for YouTube or whatever, but you know what I mean. But at the same time, I really see what was happening. Like, there is no one half-naked man or anything like that, or people who would be at least maybe, how would I say? I don't want to go to LGBTQ and stuff like that. That was, I think it wasn't really there. But you know what I mean? It was always like completely dressed guy looking like a really charismatic Lucifer, Satan figure, something, like the head of something important who is going to do something, the mass, the baptism, he was speaking the words and everything. And now the woman is just there. lying on this altar.
Yeah,
And
naked
like,
woman on the altar, ready to get a
you know,
spanking, kind of thing.
I don't
yeah.
think they were forced or anything. I don't know. But it's weird. It is weird for me.
It is.
I think I think you're right. I doubt they were actually forced to do it.
Yeah,
But
no.
there are
No,
levels
no.
of there are levels of coercion that I mean, I'm sure they were. I don't know. It just seems to me that all this aesthetic was about him projecting his idea about what he wanted to see, and you know, the manifestate him manifesting himself as a kind of like bald guy with a goatee and sort of like lowering eyebrows, and at the same time, this decorative woman on an altar was kind of his idea of the aesthetics of Satanism. And yes, I'm sure that the woman involved wasn't necessarily coerced into doing it. It wasn't necessarily non-consensual, but I'm certain there was an element of coercion that went on.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that when like COS was formed in the 60s, it was around the time of a lot of like countercultural like themes of doing things differently, you know, all the hippies, all the rise of the neo-pagan movements and that sort of stuff. And so simply like it was enough to be countercultural to like lean into these like satanic aesthetics as opposed to trying to be anything like truly subversive, because just doing that at the time was subversive, was different. You know, it's yeah. Look, again, I feel like I'm defending someone I don't really want to defend, which is great. Cool.
No, it's fine.
But
I mean,
no.
I get your point.
It's-
It is a product of its times, and it is also arguable.
Yeah.
By the same token, a
Yeah.
lot of the hippie culture was misogynist in a certain way, and that women were viewed in a certain way. And let's not forget Jimi Hendrix releasing an album,
yes,
which had naked women all over the cover. You know,
which is cool.
Oh, yeah, cool. But they were
It's
everywhere.
cool. But yeah, but it's worth noting like the major issue with it is, I feel like I'm this sentence is going to sound weird. I'm going to try and formulate this in a way that doesn't sound stupid. I feel like the focus on this has to be like the idea behind it is the Divine Statement of Church of Satan was based on a lot of fascist ideas, and a lot of fascism is based on like the masculinity of men, the femininity of women. You need to a requirement of looking at the COS and the Divine Statement is examining it through that lens, because if you don't, you miss out on a whole lot of the stuff that's actually dangerous about it.
Yeah. I mean, Might is Right, which we've already discussed, and LaVey borrowed heavily from. We know that. Actually states that very idea that women are essentially chattel, and men are the ones with the power, and that's all that's good and right with the world, according to Might is Right, and by extension, I think. I don't know enough about the guy to say that's definitely what he thought, but I certainly think that it was part of the Satanic Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's enough for him, even though if he wouldn't actually believe in this, but he put it in his books.
Exactly.
So that's dangerous, because it's not my problem if he believed in it. It's still in the books. And many people read these books and follow him because he is rememberable. I can't say it. Help me. But you know what I mean. For example, I would say, please excuse, these words are killing me. But I think this is exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, these women were not forced, I want to believe, but the coercion is there for sure. And also, I think he has said it many times that this is how we saw the world. It was, the world is an act, and, the life is just a circus and carnival. So you need to take advantage of everything it offers. So why don't take advantage of the beauty of women? Because, it sells. It still does. It's horrible. I hate it. I dislike it. I can't watch certain movies like Game of Thrones. For example, I can't. it's triggering me so bad. And it's always the same little thing that's there. And I think this is exactly what he might have been doing with women. And he says it in The Satanic Witch. Like, for example, the idea of a witch, he thinks, is that you are ugly, old, weathered clothes and stuff like that. I don't know where this is coming from, but whatever, this is what he thought. And he says, hey, witches, you don't have to be ugly. You can actually be pretty. And he gives you the whole system of how to be pretty, what colors to wear, what makeup you need to wear. You need heels.
Bloody hell.
You need to seduce your man. You need to choose your man. You can choose your man according to a car he owns. Oh my God, you I'm not making this up. You can't. I don't know. And I have one more. I will let you speak, guys, but this is like really getting to me. For example, yeah, Lithas, I think you wanted to hear this one. So listen to this. The more masculine traits a woman has, the more she blows her nose. I don't know if you knew this.
It's spectacular. And I mean, the very concept of using a word like witch, which is an old pagan concept, which, number one, in paganism is not gendered.
Exactly. I wanted to get to that. Thank you.
That was invented by the Catholic Church, as was pushed the image of the old hag of a witch, that kind of thing. Bollocks. But so he's just literally used something that, you know, was pushed by the Catholic Church as an image of a witch, and used the actual word witch, and in his mind it's a woman, and that witches were not that, and witches are not that.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It does sound like he's based his idea of what a witch is on a bunch of Disney movies, to be fair.
Yeah.
With a big nose and, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like semantically this is not relevant, but it's good for a point of order information that the Catholic Church didn't synonymize women with witchcraft. That was very much the thing that came significantly later. A lot of women were tried for witchcraft because it was convenient for them to convenient for the ruling parties and the ruling control classes at the time, a lot of which were not Catholic, but again Protestant post, to control women who were being a bit uppity or had achieving more social control than was expected or normalized. I feel like that's an important distinction to make and not, strictly speaking, relevant to the conversation. But if we don't put it, someone's going to fucking point it out and make us look annoyed. So it just
yeah,
it is a good point.
Valid point. I'd just like to blame the Catholic Church for everything. It's a downfall of having been raised a Catholic.
Yeah.
So no, you're quite right. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. Yeah, that was a very good point.
It is quite incredible, though, that here's this guy who's saying, reject everything that the church teaches you. And then he's basically taking the church's idea of what Satan is, the church's idea of what a witch is, the church's idea of what right and wrong is. Come on, man. Who are you kidding here?
Yeah, not quite. There was a lot of looser morals around, like, sex and sexual relations, which definitely wasn't in line with what the church had been saying. But there's a lot of it that definitely was, like, the idea of, you know, listening to people in power that they should be, you know, the idea of respecting authority simply because the authority is there in some places, you know. He was the lifelong proponent of the police and you know, believe they're important to everything and you should listen to the police when they come. But also, you know, didn't like drugs very much, which is because he's boring.
Also, somebody, I think, Liraj, you mentioned the hippie culture or something, like you touched on it. And I think Lithas, sorry. So from what I read, he actually hated them. He hated this movement that was... yeah, but you know, it's interesting because many people think it's rooted in the hippie culture. I don't see it, but like maybe the theatrical, I don't know, I don't know, maybe also, the fashion and everything, like people would wear some sort of like similar haircuts and everything. And I don't know, maybe. I don't see it, but he was proclaiming he was pro-police, pro-gun. He did not like humanitarian, long word, activities. So it's interesting. It's really interesting. I think it's because he was actually in his 30s. So he was not, how do I say? Yeah, I'm older than that, but he was not like in his teens when the hippie culture was, so it didn't really got to him that much. I just think it's a misconception that people think that this comes from hippie culture because he did not like them. I'm not saying I do.
And I'm quite surprised to hear that he wasn't very keen on drugs, because I kind of assumed he might have been. I can't see any other way he'd have come up with half of what he came up with.
Well, especially in late life, but because again, not to keep, I feel like this is going to be me now, but not to go back on it, but like it's fascism. It's going back to fascism again and again and again. Like fascism is about a lot of fascism is about like the integrity of like the physical body and the physical strength. In his mind, a lot of people in that similar sort of milieu see things like psychoactive substances or like uppers or downers very much poisoning the body deliberately and damaging it and preventing you from being your true full self. So it all follows in there. So if you see things and you look at it and go like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, you'd imagine him to be something else. It's because he's a fascist, and the fascism is in part of it, and it's all there. And, and if you don't acknowledge it, you don't accept it as being part of it, then you miss out on a huge part of why it is the way it is.
Yeah, and just I know we've said this a couple of times already, but it really does bear repeating. He did lift heavily from Might Is Right, and Might Is Right is a proto-fascist manual. I would not recommend that anyone reads Might Is Right, but if you have a mind to, just glance at it. This is not my opinion. Just read it for yourself. And this is the book that he claims inspired him in part, or mostly in full. So this idea of his brand of whatever Satanism he wants to call it as fascism is pretty much on the nose. I mean, that's what it was, in my opinion.
It walks like a duck, looks like a duck. I'm sorry.
Yep, indeed.
Yeah. Are you saying that Anton LaVey was quackers?
Oh, oh my God. Is this where we've got to?
This is the last episode of the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Oh,
oh, dear followers.
Look, I'm a dad. I'm allowed a dad joke now and again.
Puns are an excommunicable offense. I feel like this needs to be repeated every time.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel like it's worth saying less about what we're not and more what we are. What we are is a like progressive. God, that feels big-headed saying that. It's a
true,
progressive new. Yeah. I guess it's a progressive new neo-religious movement. That couched in the aesthetic ideals of what Satanism could be, but focusing very much on the idea of uplifting the individual and society as a whole, for every individual person to be able to get what they deserve as a minimum, just to make it more, make everyone more. Less about just making yourself more, but lifting everyone up together to have everyone's individual needs met at a basic level, and then everything else they need to come with it.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the thing I was saying earlier about this kind of like fiercely individualistic streak they've got, and them not really being adversarial to anything really. I think we are, we are that because we recognize the importance of acting as a community, even if it's just a localized community.
Yeah.
Also, we don't promote like parasitical and predatory relationships. We don't choose our members, or whatever the relations we make are not based on what we can achieve by making this relationship happen. So,
okay. Can you
You
expand
don't
on that
want to.
some more?
Okay.
No. I want to know what you mean by that, so we
Yes,
don't
I'm
get
still
sued.
talking about Anton. Okay, please.
Yes. Okay.
Please.
Cool.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
And he was known for making connections, usually with people who
Yeah,
he could benefit from. High, like financial people, successful people, famous people, Hollywood people, actresses. Did I say actresses? Okay. Female power. I wanted to say actors.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
there were a few actresses who joined, I believe, famously.
Yes, but I wanted to say, like, this is not crucial for us. We don't, because our goal is completely different. We want to change or make some changes for in the society that would make life nicer, better for people who can't help themselves. And they need support, and we are focusing on people in need, people who maybe need support out of their families, whatever, or just a community. And I don't think this is what Anton was doing. So this is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Was Jane Mansfield part of his circle? Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. I mean, that was a lot of his publicity was, you get some celebrities on board and then, hey, presto.
And the sad thing is, when the satanic panic was really in full swing, he was kind of quiet. And many people who were accused of being like in contact with the Church of Satan or with him or being satanist, who were not, maybe needed him to say something, but yeah, it didn't happen. So that's not nice, I think.
Well, that's where your individualism gets you, I guess.
Yeah.
That's how you lose your daughter, maybe also.
That too, yeah.
It's worth noting that, especially at the top, like we discussed the history that he built for himself and how that's still just disputed. I feel like that's important to understand the person who it is, but at the same time, it's worth noting that that doesn't really matter, because the person who he was and who he lived as and when he did all this sort of stuff was with the idea of that, with the idea of all that behind him. And so you instead of being able to build that sort of life and backstory behind you and then be able to like push it forwards and convince everyone that this is what I am and there's no point asking about it because you managed to build the persona you are that day at the same time, And although, whether or not, we believe he did all these weird and wonderful things growing up, I don't necessarily think it's relevant at the same time as it being true, because everyone followed him and listened to him and what he was saying because he built that persona behind him. And I feel that's probably the more important thing to focus on there. It's a good actor who could play the piano.
Oh, and Calliope. I think I'm saying it right. Calliope.
The organ, yes.
Yes. But also, I would love to meet him. Don't get me wrong. I think I would love to talk to him.
You'd have to dig him up.
We could give it a go.
Okay. Shh. Halloween is coming.
I don't know what I mean, it's got. I think a lot of him is kind of tied to the fact that he was a magician. I mean, so much of what a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors, and ended up with a kind of like sort of satanic fascism. And I'd really hesitate not to use the word fascism, but the word satanic there. I know I've said this a few times, but I really don't know how much of a link there is between, apart from the fact that he called it that. I don't know what the link is really.
Robots.
Yeah. Anyway, cue the Calliope music.
some lions, please. Jumping lions. Well, yeah.
She's obsessed with lions.
I love cats. Come on.
Did like his lions. I mean, to be fair, like if you owned a lion, you would also be obsessed with lions. I feel like that's important to like put out there.
I don't think you'd have much choice but to be obsessed with the lion that's in your house. That is true.
Yeah.
In the sense that if you weren't obsessed with it, there's a good chance you'd end up like dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I wonder what my daughter's school would say if I just show up with a lion. Like, here I am with the lion. Let the kids come close to me and touch the lion. I don't know. I don't think it went like this, but whatever. I think it would be funny. She would hate me. So, thank you for listening and being with us. My name is Lygia again. Hail Satan. See you next time.
I'm Ohima. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Hail Satan.
I'm Eddie. Yeah. Alphabet Lash. I'm Eddie. Hail Satan.
I'm Laraj. Fuck Anton. And hail Satan.
And I'm Lithos, and thank you for listening, and hail Satan.
Massive thanks to Matt and the rest of the band Hearst Pile Up for letting us use their song We're All Going to Hell as our intro. If you'd like to hear more from them, go search Hearst Pile Up on Bandcamp.